I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster, and this is LD and the MC.
Well, as the amazing Mr. Bob Cobb told you, you have arrived at LD
and the MC.
number 16, Dave. Number 16. One number up from Patrick Mahomes.
I promise I am more excited about this podcast than it may sound.
A lot of comments last night coming in through social media, Dave, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Make sure you're following us on all those fine platforms. But a lot of people are like, have you checked on the MC? Have you reached out to the MC? Is the MC okay? Do you know the number for 911 in Canada? Should we call it? There were a lot of people concerned last night, and I just kept telling them, hey, I'm not going to check on him until tomorrow. As a lifelong Tennessee sports fan, whether that be Tennessee Vols, Tennessee Titans, I know pain. I know struggle. So I know you were probably feeling it a little bit last night. And one thing's for sure, the internet will remind you that you suck, or that the teams that you pull for suck. Will they not? I mean, isn't it always comforting?
I had not noticed.
Their digital arms around you and then stab you in the back.
I've been very busy. I've stayed off of social media, and I've decided to
spend
time with my family, which is so much more important than social
media.
So, something like that. Yeah.
I
made go ahead with your mom's basement moment.
Brings me to the MBM for the week. Mom's basement moment. So I've noticed since we had Mr. Rob Turkla, Lunkers TV on the show, announcing that he was going to fish the Opens. There have been a lot of mixed emotions, mixed comments about that, but he fished his first event, didn't fare well, had a rough event. And the amount of people that have reached out to me, that have commented, that are just like, yeah, I got it. One guy actually sent me a Facebook message and said, had his face dislocated. I was like, well, that's a little much. He just didn't catch bass in a bass fishing event. But it never ceases to amaze me that people are that just, I understand the guy is controversial, throws himself out there, but speaking from someone that threw themselves out there, fished the FLW Tour, tried it. I got off the couch and I tried it, and I failed more times than not, but I kept getting back up. I kept trying it, working hard at it. And when people go, yeah, you suck, you didn't catch them good enough for me. Yeah. It's like when I started the podcast and people said, yeah, you got to do this because you can't catch them good enough. I'm like, well, did you ever try this? Those kind of comments, like it blows my mind. And I know, MC, that you can relate to this on so many levels, especially the day after the Super Bowl. So what's your mom's basement moment for the week?
And to be clear, just timeline wise for people that are getting confused. I mean, we release these on Wednesdays. We try to record them as close as possible because of the travel schedule this week. We're recording this on Monday. I mean, it is literally, I can taste the freaking chicken wings. Let me just tell you. Back in that back
lemon
tooth
pepper
there,
wings?
in that back tooth there, I just picked up, you go, well, piece of chicken, from last night. And it was so, here's what blows it. Luke, I throw myself out there. I don't hide. It's real easy to hide. I made some poetry on Super Bowl Sunday morning. I decided
time out. Killer poetry too, by the way. I'm going to say that. I give you a hard time. I couldn't even hate on that. It was amazing. Continue. I had to say that. Continue.
So I released said poetry, which was beautiful. I don't care who you are. It was honestly some of my greatest work ever. But when I released it, I knew at that moment, it's not like I was overly confident playing Tom Brady. We're going to win. You knew I was nervous, but that's also part of being a fan, man. You got to support your team and you got to throw it out there and win or lose. I'm a freaking Chiefs fan. I'm do or die. Patrick Mahomes is my guy. I am a Chiefs fan, but we lost. and I'm going to address that. We're going to talk about that. I'm not getting around it. And first of all, let me rewind. Don't you ever compare me and the Chiefs to the Tennessee Volunteers, okay? I heard that just a few minutes ago. You said, "Oh, I tried to slide that in there." I understand what you feel like. No, you don't. You wish you did. You wish you did.
I wish we lost big games that we got to.
But the thing that blows me away is I'm cool with people trash talking me online, back and forth. I mean, when you throw a video out like there, if you read through the comments all day long, anybody that jabbed in about the Bucks, I jab back and make little jokes back and forth. It's fun. That's part of being a sports fan. But the low lives, here's the low lives. I'm going to throw that. I mean,
be careful. The listeners of Low Budget Live are low lifers.
Not to be confused with low lifers. These are low lives.
And low lifers are some of the same. Careful.
And let me also be clear: if you're a low lifer, you can listen. We don't care. We have no standards whatsoever.
No shame.
But you're a loser if you contact me after being a loser the next day, like as the game's ending, I posted what I thought was a funny meme of the crying Michael Jordan and me over the classic trophy. I thought it was, it was answering all the people. It was giving them stuff to play with. And the amount of people that this morning, post after post, why would you ever go against the great GOAT, the great Tom Brady? But none of these people said crap to me before the game. Before the game, they shut up. They wouldn't say anything. And then the next morning, they're like, "You're such a fool to have ever thought you could have beat the great Tom Brady." If you listen to every pregame freaking analysis, the majority of them thought that the great Tom Brady was going to lose. I mean, what they did was incredible. So we will talk about the game as we move on here. But what I'm saying is, if you throw it out afterwards, I mean, really, you missed your opportunity. All the times that things happen and I think I should say this and I don't. And I'm like, oh, I wish I had said that. But I'm man enough to be like, okay, I'm not going to slide in now. And
yeah, the time's passed.
Yeah,
we're past that. Yeah.
Let's remind you, if you weren't a Chiefs or a Bucks fan 3 weeks ago, you're a loser too, because your team wasn't in it. So I'm going to say my mom's basement moment is people that go afterwards. And it's the same thing you said with Rob, the people that were goading you.
Not just Rob, any, if you're talking crap, and it's the same like college football. These are 19-year-old kids. You're like, he sucks. Get him off the field. While you're sitting on the couch drinking Budweiser, like, chill out, man. We've all had those moments, I guess, but that's my thing is when people throw themselves out there to try to do it, just like you and your Chiefs fandom, okay. Just sometimes we don't have to just go for the kill shot all the time,
But that's the world we live in, dude. And this isn't me. I don't know. There's going to be people that because we lost, and I'm saying this, people are going to be like, sour grapes. And there might be a tiny twist of sour grapes in me right now. I'm
sour gravy,
maybe a little bit of that too. But it's not sour gravy. It's the way the world is. Why does everybody search for? Why are people contacting you saying you better bring up something about Rob and how he did, or people texting you saying you better jump on Dave because the Chiefs are losing? It's just such a weird throw. But you know what? If you want to jump on somebody, get on my freaking shoulders. I can handle it. I don't worry. Trash talk me all you want. Now let me talk to you about this freaking game, Luke. Okay, here's what happened, Lucas.
We know what happened, Dave. Me and all the Mom's Basement folks know what happened, buddy. We know.
So you don't want me to talk about the game? You want me to move on?
No, I mean, I don't know what else you could say, but go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, I don't need to talk about the game if you don't want me to talk about the game.
No,
I was addressing my demons rather than running away saying, "You're not going to shoot me with an arrow, are you?" I mean, I'm addressing it.
Here's all I want to know. And this puts me in the Mom's Basement group. When they had not scored a touchdown in halftime, where was your mental state right then? Because I have been there with sports teams.
I was okay.
You're like,
believe it or not, I was
because
okay
they make such great comebacks, right?
It wasn't even that. It was the fact that everything had gone wrong so much had gone wrong for the Chiefs, you know, from
yeah.
our idiot punter that spent way too much time combing his freaking hair, evidently. So many of those kinds of, but that happens. But I'm looking at it and I'm like, with all that going wrong, we haven't scored a touchdown. Still not that bad. We're receiving the ball to start the second half. But it wasn't long after the second half started that I was like, man, we're in trouble. And I'll tell you, I mean, I've assessed the game. I've rewatched it 14 times since it played. I went into my man cave and I just absorbed myself with it to see what went wrong. And I've come up with one thing. I mean, we absolutely dominated the freaking Bucks at the coin toss. I mean, if you saw that coin toss, it was decisive.
It was great.
It was not only did the Chiefs win, they broke Pat McAfee's heart. I mean, he dropped 30 G's on it. Did you hear that? 30 G's.
That. Yeah.
He bit tails, but it was heads. And the Chiefs dominated the freaking coin toss. And after that, we didn't dominate anything, dude. I mean, that wasn't a battle of Tom Brady. Like everybody, the GOAT sure showed that kid. And don't get me wrong, the GOAT is the freaking GOAT, and nobody can argue with that. I'm not. Let me just also let you know something. If Patrick Mahomes won last night, the GOAT's still freaking Tom Brady.
Still the GOAT.
In my opinion. You know, the 2 Super Bowls, there's a long way to go before you're even in the same conversation as Tom Brady. But that wasn't the GOAT teaching the kid or anything. That was overall a better team. And I don't know that they're a better team overall, but I would say they're a better team. When we faced each other at the Super Bowl, they were a better freaking team. And man, I'm man enough to admit it. But here's the beauty. I mean, as a Chiefs fan, you know, we ain't done. And there's a part of me that, like, of course, I'm going to find a silver lining because, I mean, dude, I find good things to say about people every week. If they don't catch them, oh, well, we'll see you next time. I try to be a positive person.
You've got a nice beard.
But the silver lining, I guess, is if we had just rolled into town and beaten the GOAT, beaten the Bucks, and been 2-time Super Bowl champions, I don't know if that's the right thing for the Chiefs, motivation-wise. And I don't even mean the players. I don't think you get less motivation, but I mean the ownership. Like, really, if you're that dominant, I mean, up till now, the Chiefs have not had a hard time. You know what I mean? Even when Tom Brady beat them the last time, you know, when he was a Patriot, that was just one of those games that it was a toss-up. Either of them could have won it. It's just the way it worked out. This was a beating, a drubbing, and man, Patrick Mahomes is a big piece. You got a lot of big pieces, but you can't go into the NFL playoffs or any playoffs injured, and we did, and we paid the price for it. Congratulations to the GOAT. Congratulations to all the Bucs fans. It's amazing how many of you arrived, but I mean, the beginning
that bandwagon loaded up.
Beginning of Super Bowl, dude. There was, I mean, people were like, "Oh, Tom Brady, whatever team he played." Now there's like, "I've been Bucs my whole life. Get on the ship.
Like,
let's
no, you
go
ain't.
aboard."
When Jameis Winston was stealing crab legs, y'all no Bucs fans. Come on.
But it's a good time in Tampa Bay. They call it.
Yeah.
I mean, they've won a lot. You know, obviously the Lightning won the Stanley Cup. They were all in a biodome or something, so it's not even really a real Stanley Cup. But so good news is, for those of you that hate us talking about football, is it's over for quite some time. And congratulations to all the Bucs fans. Congratulations to the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, and he was and truly is the greatest. Unbelievable. I mean, won more Super Bowls than any other team he has individually. You know, it's ridiculous. And
it's really disgusting, honestly, if we're just being honest. But
I have 2 other points I need to bring up at the game. First of all, I hate Tom Brady a little bit. You know, like, and as any man, I'm willing to admit it. If you're a Bucs fan, I get it. You love him. He's our guy, blah, blah, blah. He's not really your guy. He's a Patriot. We'll argue, but just looking at him, he's just so, like, he's freaking
Perfect.
like it's like I'm not from the same. I'm not him. I'm not one of those. Like if there's two giraffes and they're standing there, I'm not like him. The giraffes look the same. Me and him do not look the same. And then
we got ripped off.
Yes, we did. We did. All of us who aren't Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And then my other point is, dude, it's your freaking fault. Okay? Everybody has their place in this world. We all have our places. Okay? And your place is to be a loser. Okay? Our whole relationship, your teams always lose. I mean, you cheered for the Titans, they lost, right? You handed off you jumped on the Bills bandwagon. What'd they do, Luke?
They got beat.
They got beat.
Yeah.
All the way along, the Chiefs have been winning. What changed going into this game, Luke?
I told you I hoped that the Chiefs would win.
Don't you ever, don't you
Yes!
ever cheer for the Chiefs ever again, you
It worked.
dirty loser.
The Luke curse is real, baby. The Luke curse is real. So that wraps it up for football.
That's all we got.
That's all we got. We're going to get out of here. No, all you humpers out there that don't like the sports talk, football talk, that's it. And luckily for all you humpers that love to see this fine Canadian on the Bassmaster Elite Series stage, now's your chance. Here he goes. Back this week. And Dave, back to Palatka, Florida, which arguably for me is one of the most historic fisheries tournament-wise, but just in the country, just like hallowed ground, I feel like. Always got big crowds down there at the weigh-ins, always have big bass. Like you're just guaranteed to see a 10-pounder most likely at this event. But do you get, like we talked to B-Rob on the Super Bowl special that nobody watched.
Yeah, we found out that this weekend.
Yeah, you guys don't want us talking football at all. We found that out. But we talked about those pregame jitters, that kind of thing. Do you get this like a nervous energy when the like back to school feeling? Are you pumped? You've been on lockdown. Like where are you at right now with the fact that it's starting back?
Oh, excited. I mean, I'm always excited to kick off the season. This one's weird though, I'll be honest. I mean, it's you know, I think it'd be the same with the anglers. You'll hear that. There's some where you feel like it can't get here soon enough. You know what I mean? You're ready to go. You're like, is it still a month till we start this? This is like, are you kidding me? We're starting tomorrow.
Yeah,
like
so
it's been really quick that way. But I mean, the beginning of the new season is exciting. You know, it's always exciting. It's going to be a fun year in the Elite Series. I mean, I really, it's weird. I mean, I'm excited, but it's it's not one of those years where I've sat around and done. Here's the weird thing. You know, a lot of times when there's a bunch of downtime, I do a ton of research going into the season. I'm researching every lake and but this year it's been so quick. I don't feel like I've done a lot of that research. And then on top of that, the other thing that I do like 40 of is like, before season starts, I used to do about 40 different podcast interviews talking about whatever. Since me and you started a podcast, nobody interviews me on podcasts anymore. So
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So I do feel kind of weird that way. You know what I mean? But it's going to be a great year. The big questions with the guys returning, obviously. I mean, I'm really interested to see this sonar war, how it continues, you know, because it was such a big thing last year, and now all of the companies, you know, not initially, I guess it's just Garmin and Lowrance right now that have their units on the boats, as far as I know. But I believe that the Humminbird units are going to be, from what I've been told, it was going to be on Humminbird Pro's boats by the time we got to the original classic date. So that'd be stop number 3. So I would hope that it'd be the same. So it's going to be interesting to see that how it evolves. And when I go to Palatka, I always cheer for one of two things. I mean, I want Rick Clunn to win again, because it's always freaking cool when Rick Clunn wins. And I'd love to see Cliff Prince get it done there, man. He's so underrated, I think, by the general bass fishing pro, because of the person that he is and how he's kind of quiet. You know
Keeps
what I mean?
himself,
Yeah. But he's an amazing angler. He's got a great track record there, but it just always seems like something freaking happens. Like
Just
some
slips away
ridiculous.
there.
Yeah, like the one year he had a live well problem on day one. So all his fish died and he couldn't call them. So he sat there and watched guys like catching all these fish that he was going to fish for, you know, and then made his way back in and top 10'd it. But there's always those weird little things that end up happening to him. So that's going to be fun to watch. But I mean, that's the weird thing about the Elite Series. And that's the thing that I love about the Elite Series is it's kind of one of those things where you sit and you start talking and you know what I mean? Like, you're like, well, what are you looking forward to? And then you start, and that guy walks up and you're like, well, I'd really like to see how he does in this situation or that. But like the weirdest thing about my brain, Luke, that will blow you away is I'm not good at preparing for things. Shocker.
Wait.
I know
you're just laying this on me now? 16 episodes in, you're unprepared. I'm unprepared.
Well, the crazy thing is, like, for example, like before an event, I'll stop and I'll think, I'll be like, okay, what are little tidbits and facts and things I know? Like, I've been to Palatka a bunch of times. I've seen lots of cruel things happen and go down, and you try to remember and you can't remember anything. And then last year I'm standing there and Paul Mueller walks past and I'm like, oh, wait a second. 2 events ago we were here and you left after day number 1 because you had to have that baby you're holding in your hands right there. But I didn't remember that until freaking Paul Mueller walked up. It's weird the way, I mean, I don't know if that means I have a lazy mind or what does that tell you, Luke?
I don't know. I will never judge anyone in their mind. I can't. Mine's like squirrel.
Wait a second. Did you just say you had me at I will never judge anyone? Just somebody.
No. Don't cut that up. I will judge. I will join the Mom's Basement faithful and I will judge, but I will never judge anybody on their bandwidth because mine is all over the place, buddy. You guys know that. You guys know that all the way around. Well, I'm pumped that it's back. It's strange for me. People are always like, hey, what do you think for fantasy fishing? What do you think for this? It is so hard for me to pick guys. Like you're saying, like there's so many good guys and there's so many, I mean, out of that field, it's tough to go, oh man, I'd like to see him win more than him. And there's just so many good ones. And they're, like you said, so many storylines with the guys coming back. The new rookie crop is they're not rookies, most of them at all. And it's just going to be interesting to see. And you've got what I feel like to be a fraternity of the guys that after we had the big split a couple years ago, the guys that stayed at Bass, the guys that were incoming rookies that year, they're Bass proud, right? And they are like this tight-knit group. Now you got this guys coming back. It's just a really interesting field of anglers, I feel like. And I think that the first 2 tournaments alone are just going to be polar opposites. And it's going to be incredible, man. I can't wait.
I'm going to go totally rogue here. Just to let all our viewers know, we spend hours and hours before we produce this show in pre-meetings. Well, really, we just spend a few minutes and we're like, what do you want to talk about? Here's some topics.
We try to figure it out.
This isn't a topic that we thought about beforehand, but I'm going to put you on the spot and throw it out there because it is a tournament. And I know if we don't talk about it, we're going to get roasted by people. What in the world is happening with the Charlie's Chocolate Factory $1 million Johnny Morris?
Oh, yeah.
U.S. Bass Open already been that
US
tournament.
Open, yeah.
U.S. Open already been named that for 40 years, but it's back.
Charlie the Chocolate.
Well, he is kind of.
I just saw him like with the fake limp, with the cane, stumbling out in front of an aquarium. Handing out golden tickets.
I mean, it is a $1 million payout for
first place. Yeah.
For first place. How many qualifiers? Do you know how many qualifiers they're having? Like 8?
They're having 6.
6 qualifiers.
40 for me. No, actually, I think it is 8. It is 8. I'm wrong there. I think it is 8.
So you got to finish in the top 40 of one of those.
One of those. And you can only fish one. You can't fish multiples. You can.
So you can't fish the tour. It's not a tour.
It's only one turn. You can fish essentially one owner's tournament. $900 entry fee, which is steep, I feel like, but $900 entry fee. And then if you make the top 40, you go to the Johnny Morris US Open, which will be on NBC Sports. But I mean, they're claiming like 300 and something boats. So 250 boat max cap on every one of those qualifiers. Have to be in a Ranger, Triton, Nitro, Tracker, Tahoe, one of those brands, one of the Johnny brands. And you can't have won more than $100,000 in your entire fishing career or paid an entry fee over $2,500. So
in the last 2 years,
in the last 2 years.
Yeah. So realistically, you name it. I mean, whoever is an ex-pro and hasn't competed in the last 2 years can compete, right?
The 100,000 is career earnings.
Okay.
And here's my thing with that though. How many guys have been fit? Because you're like me. I know a lot of diehards that aren't pros that fish a lot of circuits every single year. Now it would be hard to gather all that information. Dude, you win $2,000 on this Saturday. You win $1,500 over here, $600 here. There are a lot of people. They've spent $600,000 to win $100,000, but there are so many bass fishermen in this country that have won over $100,000. So that's going to be a hard one to track. But immediately, and I talked about this a little bit on the podcast.
I think it's only, but it's not.
It's only the big trail.
It's won $100,000 in either the FLW
professionally,
Tour,
yes,
Elites, or the Bass Pro Tour. Correct?
Yeah. That's the way I read it. But here's the thing. What my point is, you're eliminating the quote pros. The guys you need to be worried about are the guys that have won $100,000 fishing Roland Martin's team trail, right? Like if you're wanting a fair level playing field, those are the guys that are going to kick your teeth in down at Okeechobee, So I don't know. It's very, for me, and like I said, talked about on the podcast, there's a lot going on within that company. They've fired a lot of pros, and now this is a very big push for amateur events. No pros. In their announcement video, they talked about that a lot. So it's kind of clear to see the mindset there, I feel like, a little bit, which not knocking them. I've said this as well. They've sponsored a lot of people over the years, and they still do. And they support a lot of the industry. And there are parts of this that are going to go to conservation, per the press release. There are scholarships for kids. Like there's a lot of good in this. But there are a lot of the details that I think will cause them, in my opinion, to struggle to fill the fields. I think.
You think filling the fields will be a problem? Mm-hmm. See, I feel the opposite. I feel like you will have no problem filling the fields, and it'll be interesting to see. But I just think at the opportunity at that kind of money, you know what I mean. So I can go fish an event on Lake St. Clair, and if I finish in the top 40, which is a very realistic,
very good
goal,
chance,
or at least it feels that way for anglers. You know what I mean? It's not a top 20, not a top
5,
top 40. I can go fish this event for $1 million. To me, that seems huge. I think there's weird things. I think it's weird the way they did the entry fee per person when it's a team event. Like, you know what I mean? I think
that's just to soften the blow.
It's kind of like you can buy this boat for $29 a month for the rest of your life.
yeah, exactly. Read the fine print. So you think they'll fill up?
I think so, but I also think so because they're only. I think it's kind of genius the way you're jackpot in these events. You're intentionally taking away from the feeling of I'm attracting guys that are fishing a circuit to this is a jackpot. So everybody in the Lake St. Clair area, because that's the one closest to me that I saw on the schedule, I believe.
Yeah.
So all the Detroit people, all the people from the Canadian side of the border, all those tournament anglers are going to want to compete in this. I mean, when there's a big one-off event on Lake St. Clair, like they have like the big mega. They did this one tournament back in the day they called the Mega Bucks, where it was like all the clubs kind of came together and it was a big payout. Well, everybody fished that, so I feel like you're still going to get that same kind of support because it's a one-off event. Everybody, all the local guys. So I think that numbers will not be a problem. I think that to me, I think that kind of excitement and exposure around fishing is huge.
Oh, it's a good thing. Yeah.
A negative, I would say, as a guy who makes his living in fishing, and we, you know, a lot of people that listen to this show, I'd be a little concerned that we all know what happens when the pie gets cut up. I mean, everybody talks about the pie growing, but what's going to happen right now is you got Bass, who's knocking on companies' doors. You have MLF that's knocking on companies' doors. They're already destroying each other, you know, going against each other, trying to take from each other. Well, now you've got a big third player coming from that, because he's not funding this, I would assume, just through Bass Pro and Toyota, I know, is involved. But he's also going to fund this through Berkeley. He's also going to fund this through Abu. He's also going to, every company in the industry is going to have an opportunity to be involved in this. And here's the difference. Now, all of a sudden, the marketing guys are going to be like, well, I mean, we know how Bass Pro gets the sponsors, right? I mean, it's not really, they don't, how would you like to sponsor this tournament? Oh, you wouldn't? Well, how would you like to see what your shelf space looks like if you don't?
To see the clearance aisle.
So my worry is that now all of a sudden, those decision makers, it's like, okay, well, we have to do the Johnny thing, and what's left for these? So I would worry that yet again, you know, it's great for the industry, it's great for recreational anglers, but it's another kick in the nuts for pro anglers potentially. I mean,
oh yeah.
And the other part of me is why wouldn't you do this with one of those companies? You know what I mean? Obviously, I know what the obvious choice would be. You would think it would be MLF. You know, they have their partnership. They've been working tightly together. You know, why are they getting into that business?
Interesting.
But these are all questions that you guys can discuss.
I'm going to ask you this one before we move on. Do you think this helps them sell more boats? Are you going to buy a $75,000 or $80,000 Ranger so you can fish this tournament for $1 million?
No, I'm not going to, but I do think it helps them sell boats. I think that anybody that says it doesn't,
sustainable.
If it's sustainable, if you don't think it does, look how Ranger got their market share. Let's not be stupid. Ranger got their market share simply through the FLW Tour. They make a great boat. I'm not one of the first ones ever made. Like I'm not. It's not a question of whether the boat's good, bad, or indifferent. But a major reason that people bought Rangers year after year was because of that program, because of Ranger Cup money. And Johnny is just duplicating what you know what it means. The same companies evolved again. They're just trying to make their own thing. So I think, yeah, long term it does sell some boats. I'm sure it's gonna. They need there to be demand, Luke. Like when you're saying, I don't know if they'll fill it. They need it to be full, because that's the only way you are going to sell those boats.
Yeah, it's got to be full.
You know, how do you become an FLW Touring Pro? What's the quickest, easiest way in the past to do that? It doesn't matter any of the other standards. You buy a Ranger, you've got that opportunity, and but that doesn't happen unless there's a demand. You know what I mean? If there was never a demand at FLW, they wouldn't have had that bargaining chip. So I think that they're betting it does. It'll be interesting, man. It'll be really, really.
So are you buying us a bass tracker, or can we wear a fake mustache and like glasses and get in these? St. Clair, me and you, LD and the MC, going for $1 million.
I put an incredible amount of money on a football game in the last number of hours.
Well,
and if that had to come in, Lucas, you would not believe the things I had chalked up to buy. I had a studio for us and all sorts of stuff. Sweet stuff I had coming. But
well, damn those Chiefs is all I gotta say to that.
Yeah.
There goes my hopes and dreams.
Next year.
Maybe.
Tom Brady looks like he's fallen to pieces, doesn't he?
Yes. Bless his heart, as they say down here. Bless his heart.
We talked a lot. You know what we talked in that last episode? We talked about underdogs. And
we did.
It's hard to believe that at one time in Tom Brady's career, he was a freaking underdog. Like, he was the underdog.
He sure was.
But we left off one of the biggest underdogs. And really, I'll take it as a compliment to this guy that we left him off, because he doesn't jump up in the top of your head as an underdog. And I think that's because of his personality. And it's a guy that we both know and love very well, Clay Dyer, Luke. I mean, the biggest underdog in fishing, and one of the most inspirational people in life.
No, he's an incredible human being. And whether it's fishing or just in regular day-to-day life, the fact that the guy he's just overcome anything that's ever been thrown at him. And it goes way back to, I've got to know Clay, it goes way back to like his mom and his dad. They never treated him any different. You know, you're talking about a guy born no legs, no arms, just incredible, man. And of all things that he picks that he enjoys the most, fishing, driving a boat fast, by the way. He likes to drive very, very fast. And he's just incredible, man. So incredible.
It really is. And I mean, he ties a knot with his tongue, sets the hook by jamming the rod.
Writes with his mouth better than I write with my hands. Like, such great handwriting. It's incredible. It's nuts. Yeah. Puts a treble hook right there, ties it up, fires that sucker out there, dude. We'll have a 6XD back before you can turn around. Like, it's incredible.
It really is amazing. He's an incredible personality. I mean, sometimes he's so, dude, I had like the most humble, I've had so many humbling experiences with him. Like, you know, obviously a lot of people know I was dealing with back problems bad. And I remember once being like, after weighing, you know, you walk off the stage and the pain gets worse and worse and worse. And you're just counting the moments till you get off stage and kind of crouch down and lay. So I'm like down there in pain, and Clay comes like rolling up beside me. And he's like, "Are you okay? I feel for you, bro." And I'm just like,
you're like,
yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get it.
But he's, I mean, some of the most amazing, like I remember I talked to him once in the winter, and he's got this great like personality where there's nothing going to stop him. And he's like, "How's the snow up there again?" And I said, "Oh, it's getting pretty deep." And he's like, "Oh yeah, same here in Tennessee." He goes, he said, "Just started this morning and it's already waist deep on me." So, I mean, you're like,
fantastic.
But it's, guy is the most amazing dude ever. And I mean, look, I don't think we can talk about him without me telling, in my opinion, the most incredible Clay Dyer story ever. And it just so happens to star one Lucas Dunkin. Are you cool with me telling this story?
It does. It does.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
It probably needs public consumption. I'll be honest. Clay. I would never say okay if Clay didn't think that it was hilarious too.
So,
oh, dear God,
you may not realize this, but the very first time that me and Duncan actually worked together was on Bassmaster Live, and you came up and worked with us at an event. Where were we?
Wheeler Lake.
Wheeler, yeah,
the one Takahiro one.
That's right. So Luke's there, and we're doing these live segments. And, you know, when you do live segments for bass, I mean, there's a lot of downtime where you're waiting for that moment or whatever. So we just, I mean, it's like the podcast before there was even friggin' podcast. We just have conversations, and Clay becomes part of this conversation. And we get on the topic of bread pudding.
Banana pudding.
Banana pudding.
Banana pudding.
Right?
Yeah.
See how serious he
This is a key. This is a key because Clay was all over you about the fact that you had never tried it.
No, I had not.
That was the key.
He was appalled. He couldn't believe it. So they was it the next day?
Brought it. No, it was that day.
That's how we got talking about it. He's like, "There's banana pudding in the media trailer."
The media trailer, yeah.
And I'm just like, whatever. But they just keep going on and on. You got to try this. You got to try this. So, I mean, it doesn't take long to convince me to try anything that's edible, right? So I'm all in. So we get heading over to the media trailer. And I mean, like I said, when you hang out with Clay, you literally, like, there's certain people who have situations physically that you notice and you never don't notice. But with Clay, literally, he's just one of the guys, and he makes it such a non-factor, you forget about it. So we're on our way over to the trailer, and it isn't until we get right to the door of the trailer that we realize, I mean, there's no ramp to get in.
You can't get in the trailer.
Clay's going to need a hand here, right? again, Clay's super comfortable like this. He just, I'm in the lead. I open the door and he's like, "Hey, Luke, can you give me a hand?" And Luke's like, "Sure." And he's like, "What do you want me to do?" And he tells Luke what to do. He says, "Just bend over in front of me." So he bends over in front of him.
Like a piggyback ride. Like a piggyback ride. Yeah.
Exactly. Puts his arms, over his shoulders, around his neck. And Luke lifts him up and he's giving him a piggyback ride into the trailer. Well, I don't know what happened, and I'll give you an opportunity.
I know what happened, but go ahead.
Here's what I saw. I'm in the trailer. There's only two people in the trailer. It's myself and Thomas Allen.
Thomas Allen.
who used to write for Bass. It was his first event, like his second day on the job. I didn't know that. Welcome to the new job. So imagine a long trailer with just a bunch of desks, and everybody's back to back in there just working away. In the media trailer, there's two people in it. Myself and Thomas Allen. Thomas is in front of his laptop working away, trying to make a good impression because he's new with the company. And I'm headed towards this banana pudding. And the next thing I see is Luke does this move, boom, spins quickly at the door. Clay Dyer leaves Luke's back, flies 3 or 4 feet in the air, lands on the ground, boom. He does a double roll and stops at Thomas Allen's feet, and Clay's just like.
And he said about halfway through this, he goes, "I'm all right. I'm all right." And I'm like, "Oh shit!"
So I start yelling what any friend would yell: "You killed Clay Dyer!
You killed Clay Dyer!" And I felt so bad, but he got on my back. He got on my back, and I went, and I was gonna turn to set him. It's only two stairs up there, 2-3 steps, up in the trailer. So in my mind, I was like, okay, because it's like you said, Clay makes you so comfortable with the fact that, it's just everyday life for him, but it's not for us, which is, it's unfortunate for him in that situation where we don't have to deal with that. He doesn't. He's like, hey, brother, no big deal. That's just Clay. So, and I've been around Clay a lot. I've met Clay when I was 18 years old. So I've known Clay, been around Clay, hung out with Clay a ton of times. And when I got him there, I was just trying to lower him gently. And for whatever reason, when I turned, that velocity, buddy, he did not have a grip like I thought he did. And I body slammed. And my favorite part after that, because I was appalled, and I called my wife leaving. I'm like, because it's a big deal for me. I get to be on Bass Live, been hanging out with you. I was like, it was awesome. I called her to let her know how it goes. I was like, all that aside, she's like, yeah. It's I body slammed Clay Dyer today. She's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, this whole thing. So I told her, but that night she and I went to dinner after I got back home. My phone dings and it's Zona. He says, WTF, bro? I heard you body slam Clay. And word had made its way around. Luke Dunkin, I'll never forget this as long as I live. So I'm glad that we got to relive that. Clay, we love you, buddy. You're the best. We love you. And it was a oh my God. And he will tell that. So I had Clay come and speak at a TH Marine national sales meeting 2 years ago. Had 40 sales reps there, and they were like, hey, we want somebody, to come and speak. And I said, get Clay. Clay's the best. Speaking to groups, and he has such an amazing story. So we got Clay over there, and the first story that little shit told was, hey, I'd like to thank Luke. And he's country as cornbread like me. So Toss Cafe's like, I'd like to thank old brother Luke for getting me here, but let me tell you a quick story about the time he body slammed me. And you got a crowd of people. They're like, he did what to you? and they don't know the relationship. But then he tells the story, and everybody laughs. But it's I did that. Yeah, that's my claim to fame right there. One of.
I don't blame Clay. I make it a rule. If I'm speaking at an event and an employee at that event has thrown me across the room, I'm going to bring that story
Yeah,
up.
that's
That
the
is a
opener.
good icebreaker.
That's the opener. Yeah, every time, every freaking time.
Well, in all honesty, all
Oh,
of this has been an opener because we have a very special guest, a guest that I told you would not come on. You asked me if he'd come on, and I said he will not come on, but he has actually committed to come on. And I would like you to help me put your hands together and let's welcome the GOAT of tournament officiating, the one and only Trip Weldon.
Yes.
All right, joined by Trip Weldon. And Luke, I'd say it's a varsity move because I honestly clearly said on the show that we would not get Trip on this show.
You said it.
But Trip, you've shocked me. You're like an onion. There's so many layers to you. You actually listen to some of our tomfoolery, it turns out.
Absolutely. I saw your, I guess, 2 shows the last couple of weeks, and I've watched Luke a bunch, and it's fun. So let's have some fun.
Yeah, well,
let's do it. Thank you. I want to say thank you. I know Dave, you and Dave are coworkers and buddies, but for me, for you to say you listen to some of my stuff, that's an honor for me, sir. So I want to say thank you.
Well, I will tell you this, Luke. It was you dated me when you talked about your very first tournament at Lake Mark.
I'm sorry,
but I remember that tournament vividly. I remember every fish. You know how bass fishermen are.
Yeah.
I remember every fish I caught. I'd found a couple of good ones spawning in practice, and was able to get them in the boat. And so I was real fortunate that day.
I remember that day well. Never forget it, for sure.
Yeah.
Trip, one of the amazing things and one of the things that I love about you is, number one, I mean, your memory, like when it comes to things, you know, bass trivia and that sort of thing, you're the go-to source. You're the guy that I always, you know, turn to whenever we're trying to figure something out. But one of the things that I love most about your job and the history about it is every one of these rules. I mean, the Bassmaster Tournament rule book, it must be this thick, but it didn't start this way. They all come from something. And maybe you're willing to share some of those stories, you know, where some of these crazy rules, like not being able to scuba dive and stuff like that. I mean, they all started somewhere.
I told the tournament staff, I said, you know, call on me anytime because my memory bank is quite large. And, you know, it started, I'll tell you real quick. I grew up 2 blocks from the original Bass headquarters. And in the early days, the only way you could get Bass tournament results was called the Hotline. It was 272-9530. And
That's awesome.
and it would be busy. You know, you just keep dialing. And I would call that hotline almost every day of every tournament. That's the kind of tournament junkie I was. This would be back in the late 70s and early to mid 80s. But yeah, a lot of the rules that we have, you know, are they have an angler's name attached to it. The Dick Garlock rule was before my time. That was actually Dewey Kendrick put that in. That was Dick Garlock, the late Dick Garlock, who just recently passed away. Was an amazing guy. He actually came and saw me at Waddington, Dave. I don't know if you were there that day.
Yeah.
He and Clun visited a while, but he was scuba diving there in practice, perfectly legal. So that's where that rule came from. The penalty box rule, Swindle called me the other day and I said, you know, the penalty box rule was your rule. It all started at the Classic with his DQ, and there were a lot of people involved with that decision. I will say it wasn't just a Trip Weldon decision, but I'm the one that had to deliver the news to my old roommate along going to the Bassmaster Opens. But we put it in the penalty box, and it looks like others have taken that rule and run with it. And so, hey, I'm okay with that. If it's good for the sport, that's fine. But at the time, there were 3 ramifications of a rules infraction: loss of catch for the day, loss of catch for the tournament, or a permanent ban from bass. And so I said, we got to change this. I said, it's, you know, he shouldn't lose his catch for the day. So that's when we put in the penalty box rule. And that rule has been quite effective. You know, when you start taking people's competition time away from them, they'll stand up and take notice. And then it more fits the penalty fits the crime. We've got the Paul Elias rule was paying the guy to move the barge at Gunnersville.
Oh yeah.
Back, in one of those fall tournaments, and he was catching them on a crankbait. And gets over there where all the barges are tied up right there at Spring Creek. And one of them sitting right on top of his spot, and he gives a guy $100 bill, and he moves the barge. Hey, perfectly legal. Good job, Paul. Perfectly legal.
Thinking on your feet.
Absolutely. Golly, I'd have to go through the rule book. We don't have time to do that. Maybe there's some you guys think of, but yeah, most of them have an angler's name attached to them in some fashion. Or form.
That's my favorite thing that you've said, because it is that way. You know, when I fished FLW or fished the Bassmaster Opens, oh, that's the so-and-so rule. Yeah, that's a such and such rule. That's always what it is amongst anglers. You say, oh yeah, well, that got changed because of so-and-so. So I love that you're like, yeah, they're all attached to an angler, because they are, because it's like, it's something the tournament staff didn't necessarily see coming for it to be illegal. Like you're saying, who would ever thought a guy's going to scuba dive before an event to just scout water? Like that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, competitors push the limit, and you expect them to. And hey, I can't look into the future. And you're exactly right, Lucas. It's stuff that how in the crap did that happen? You know, we better address that. Let's write that down, because we meet tournament staff meets once a week. The tournament directors. All the people running tournaments, we meet once a week, and first thing we do is go over rules, and then get into all our logistics and all that fun stuff.
So Trip, those competitors that I'm sure there's competitors, I'm not asking you to name, but there's probably competitors that have more rules named after them than other competitors. Let's just say those competitors, as a tournament official, do you look upon them as well, they're a little more challenging, or they may keep me on my toes, or do you look at them and say, man, they're the smart ones? They're thinking outside of the box. Like, how do you look at it? Or is it case by case basis
it's probably a case by case basis, but you know, one of the most competitive guys out there is Iaconelli. I mean, come on, you know, the guy, he's just a super freak competitor. And, I tell people all the time, I had my dealings with Iaconelli, or as Chuck and I called him Iaconetti, because this little kid one time, where's that Iaconetti? I want to get his autograph. But he's a great guy. You know, I love him to death. And I tell people all the time, I've been to many a weigh-in and still be there an hour after the weigh-in. All the other competitors are gone, and Iaconelli's still sitting there signing autographs until the last kid leaves. And so I pushed the button. I mean, he and a lot of guys, I mean, they pushed the envelope, but you know, all my dealings with Ike were always, you know, professional. And when we got done with it, we were done with it. And he, like I say, he's a great guy. I love him to death. Actually, yeah, he gave me a couple of nice, I got a lot of texts, of course, when I was diagnosed with cancer. Put my blogs out, and I got two real nice texts from Mike and a lot of the former guys, and I appreciate those.
Yeah, Ike's an amazing competitor, but I could see how he could push some buttons as in your position. You've talked about your toughest call being I think. I mean, there was a few of them, obviously the Swindle call, you know, at the Classic, which you've already talked about, Kevin
Hackney call
and the Hackney call.
Yeah.
Were those just calls because of what they eventually affected, or it's just such big events that it makes it that much tougher, or is it their personalities that made it tougher?
You know, it's probably a combination of all of that, Dave. The Swindle call was tough because we're so close. I mean, you know, we roomed together, and I fished against his daddy, and way before Luke was fishing Red Man and BFLs. The Hackney call, I run through that 1,000 times or more in my mind. I'm sure he has. You know, I wish he had called me that day and he'd weighed his fish. And I wish the guy that reported him had called me from the water, but it goes back that changed the rule. I mean, that situation and in a couple of other places where we go to Detroit and they say the fish had to be hooked in the mouth, we changed our rules to say that not all these rules may conform with state and federal laws, which may not result in a disqualification if you get fined. So like hooked in the mouth. I mean, the game warden's got to be in the boat with you.
Yeah.
He's got to see you catch that fish, unless it's on film. The Hackney deal and the whole deal up there in New York was all the man-made stuff, and you're going by what those officials are telling you in the lines they're drawing. And everybody had those sheets. I think it was 11 different places that were off limits. But we changed that rule to, you know, if it's not posted, if they don't want you in there, they should post it. I mean, there's got to be a responsibility on those people as well. If it's open water, a bass should be for angler rights, and you should too. If you can float a boat in there, coming in off tournament waters, you should be able to go in there if it's not posted. If it's legally posted, then you deal with it. So, but those were tough because I love all those guys. I'm glad to see Godzilla back on the Elite Series.
He's back. I had Kyle Welcher on my podcast today, and I told him at the end, I said, "Hey, Kyle, I need one favor from you." I said at the first morning at Plaque, I said, "I need you to look at Hackey and say, 'Sup, rookie? Welcome. Let me show you how to go through boat check." And he goes, "You know what? I think I'm going to pass on that, Duncan. I think I'm out on that."
Oh, Kyle, now I will tell you, Kyle made a lot of phone calls last year. He had a lot of rules questions, but you'd rather get those phone calls and deal with something bad later. But man, what a great angler. And I watched some of his YouTube stuff.
Oh yeah.
The kid can fish now.
He can catch them. He can catch them.
He can catch them. He can cast. I can watch him skip left-handed, you know, all that stuff. The dude can fish.
He really can. And that's interesting. You say so it was his rookie year and you had a ton of calls from him. So he's just kind of seeing where everything lies, I guess, and making sure he's good on all the rules, right?
He's making sure he goes to Detroit, and we don't allow him south of the Windsor Bridge. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to pre-fish, which several guys did, down on the Erie end, which was perfectly fine. Same thing where they are this week at St. John's. We've got boundaries on each end. So guys go down below DeLand, Florida, and fish down towards Toho and Kissimmee. But no, Kyle he was right on top of his game. He had a good year.
He did.
Trip, I've seen you do a lot of tournaments and stuff, but I really, every time it gets mentioned, I wonder, and I'm just going to ask, you know, what the heck was it? Like you and Swindle rooming together, to me, I mean, there's part of me that thinks that might be the most fun room to be a fly on the wall. But then there's part of me that's like, this may be an episode of The Odd Couple together. Tell me how that situation came about and what it was like.
Well, the first tournament we roomed together was in Clayton, New York. And we stayed at Captain Clayton's motel, lawnmower and small engine repair. That's the honest to God's truth. That's where we stayed. It's about a 6-unit motel, and we had a space heater right in the middle of the room, and we'd sit there by that space heater and eat a bowl of cereal every morning for breakfast. But yeah, it was probably the odd couple. I mean, there you got Swindle, you know, he's wired every day, each and every day, and that mind's constantly clicking. And I'm probably the total opposite of that, more laid back but no, it was fun. I mean, you know, there's never a dull moment around Swindle. You know that, and I know Luke knows that better than anyone. So, no, it was crazy. We did it that one year, and then you know, we fished around and fished against each other here in Alabama for several years.
He is definitely a piece of work, and I'm sure that he kept you on your toes on the road as a
Yeah,
as a
he did.
roommate.
He did.
Did he ever pull any pranks or anything on you? Because he's kind of notorious for that sometimes too. Like he likes to mess with folks.
No, I tell you, we were at Okeechobee, and the meeting was in a gymnasium, so I challenged him to a game of horse on the basketball because I could shoot pretty good, but he kicked my butt, so I had to buy him a milkshake.
I love it.
Trip, I know you grew up fishing tournaments and worked for Bass for a while, and actually I ended up leaving it to go fish tournaments and came back. But now that you're sitting here, a week into retirement officially, you've made an incredible impact on the sport. The names that go beside your name, just that alone in itself. Did you ever imagine this at the beginning? When you first came back for that job, it's a full-time job and it's an opportunity, but did you really think, man, I'm going to hang out here for 30 years and everything that's just happened in those 30 years? I mean, you could never have imagined it, could you?
Oh, never could have. I mean, I'll back all the way up to the 1981 Classic in Montgomery. I was a camel boat driver, and Dewey Kendrick we had tow vehicle volunteers. We were volunteers, and he was a tow vehicle driver. That's where we first met. And then he called me. I was working at a buddy of mine's Ranger dealership. I just left the railroad in 91, I'm sorry. And he called and wanted me to come interview for assistant tournament director. And so I did, and the rest was history. And the rest is history. And it rocked along. I still fished a lot of tournaments. I was actually leading the BFL Bama division when he hired me. And he let me miss one of the tournaments to go fish the final event if I could win the points championship, which I did not. But I still had that itch, to fish professionally. And I never really left Bass. I went part-time, and I kind of scratched that itch, and I fished a couple of some FLW events, and I went back to Dewey. I said, I'm ready to come back. And so he actually hired me twice. And then in 2002, they had a reorganization, and Dewey was made director of site selection, and Dean Kessel and Jerry McInnes named me tournament director. So no, never did I envision, for 19 years being tournament director at Bass, walking alongside my heroes, and then watching other guys become heroes and become legends in the sport. I never envisioned that. And so I'm very fortunate in that realm. I've met a lot of great people along the way, and I met some that we won't talk about. I'm glad they moved on. Whatever.
There's probably some, Trip, that are glad they're not under your thumb anymore, having you look at them like, hey, what's he up to?
I'm sure that feeling's mutual. I wish all of those guys, the ones that left, when we had to split, I wish them all the best. And like I say, I got a lot of great texts, and I appreciate those. And I wish, I said, I hope you have a great year. So.
Let me ask you this, Trip, just being a fan of the sport first, for me, like I said, it's an honor to get to talk with you on our silly little podcast here. But this will be a tough question, I feel like, because there's so many great moments in your career. But if you could define what is your favorite moment? Is that, standing on a classic stage, somebody's win, and you're probably going to make somebody mad with this answer, but what's your favorite moment? If you could just pick one, what would it be?
There's so many.
It's hard.
You can't beat the classic stage. I mean, there's nothing like being on that stage, and especially when that last guy comes up, and I've got my finger right there waiting for the weight to pop up and punch that button.
That's awesome.
And I'll never forget in Pittsburgh, I'll say this, probably the two best tournaments that I went to, both were in Pennsylvania. And I think Dave will agree on the Philadelphia one. When Iaconelli won Philadelphia, it was crazy. And that tournament was off the charts. I mean, we had so many great elite tournaments, but in Pittsburgh, when I punched it, and Kevin realized he was champion of that event with what, 12 pounds total. Still greatest classics ever. And he
Without
jumps
a doubt.
about 3 feet off the ground. And he and I have talked about that moment. He remembers I pointed to him, and he knew he was the winner, and there was poor Aaron second again.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's hard to beat the classic stage. It really is. I mean, I was assistant tournament director when Kershaw won, and that was really special. Being in that arena when a Federation guy wins the classic. And at that time, the Federation, man, was so strong, 40,000 plus members, and still strong today. But at that time, it was probably at its peak. And I don't know. Again, nothing beats the classic stage.
That's interesting. You picked the lowest weight classic in history, but for me, I think that's one of the best. It's in my top like 3. It's just for me to see those guys struggle, on a fishery. Those are the tournaments I love the most, right? It's like these past elites we had this fall. People are like, fall tournaments. I don't like to watch fall tournaments. I loved every second of that. Give me one where the guy that eventually wins AOI zeros one day. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I've got another Iconelli
drama.
story. Yeah, I've got another Iconelli story in Pittsburgh. I would think of him every day for about 6 months after that event. So in Pennsylvania, you had to wear your fishing license on you somewhere. It had to be visible. And most guys put it on a hat. So they'd come through takeoff and we'd check them. Who's the one guy that doesn't have his license on? So I told him, I said, go through checkout, because we had it was like 4,000 people there at takeoff. It was nuts. It was Saturday at the Classic. And I said, go right around the seawall and wait on me. And he sent a family member back to the hotel. And I run up to the street. I mean, it's probably, I don't know, several hundred yards. And I get his fishing license, and I'm running back, and I go down a bunch of stairs, and I turn my dang ankle. And for 6 months, I've got a sore ankle. So I think of Iconelli every day, and I told him the story. But he got his license. He got his fishing license in expedited time, and we got him on the water fishing. So there was so much drama in that tournament, Aaron breaking off, on the bridge pilings, and it was just a great event, man. It was off the charts.
I agree. I mean, as a fan, I've said this to you, Trip, a bunch of times. That's still my favorite classic. Like just going there, knowing that anybody can win on this final day. Like, I forget who it was, but I might have been Jimmy Mize or one of the guys. I remember somebody caught like 13 or 14 pounds in pre-fish. Like somebody did have. So the chance of somebody like literally winning that event in one day was there. So, I mean, I agree that I think it was real exciting.
Well, that's what Hackney did, in the Forest Wood Cup up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The water came up that second day. You went up there and caught like 12 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And right when they crowned him champion, I sent him a text, "Go Tigers, GEAUX Tigers." He texted me back pretty quick, but that was pretty cool. But no, that was right. I mean, you're a hockey fan, Dave, and to be in the hockey arena, I forget the name of it, but they had just signed the kid. What was
Sidney Crosby?
They had just signed Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
And so, and we had PETA demonstrations out front.
I remember.
They were out front. So there was all kind of stuff going on at that classic, but it was cool.
Yeah. There was one classic, it might have been that one, but speaking of PETA demonstrations, there was one classic where PETA was on one corner and they had like a big protest for the classic. And then one of the like local radio stations did a contest and did a big promo, but they had like a fish fry on the other side of the corner. And the fish fry crowd was like 5 times the size of the PETA crowd, and I just thought it was all like it was before I worked for Bass. It might have been that event, but that was, I think I agree, that was an amazing event.
We had a classic in Birmingham, and I was still assistant at that time, so I'm outside lining up the trucks and the boats to come through the arena. Well, this is in August, and it's like 98 degrees outside. I mean, it's smoking hot. And Gil the fish, that's the PETA mascot,
Yeah,
is there handing out brochures, which none of our crew would take them, or none of our fans would take them. But after about 30 minutes of that in that outfit, 98 degrees. He decided it was time for a smoke break. So he takes his big fish head off and he goes over here and sits on the wall and takes a smoke break. And I thought, of all the people, you would think these people would have no vices whatsoever. And the guy goes over there and takes a smoke break. They didn't have a cell phone at that time. I mean, this is back in the 90s. I should have got a picture of that. It would have been pretty fun to play with.
You heard it here, folks. First, folks, PETA is not that committed. They're not.
That's right. That's right.
98 degrees and the nicotine rush. They're not going to stick with it to protest for that long. So we can beat them there, guys. If they show up.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Oh, unbelievable. It's so I mean, we have you on here, and if we don't ask you, that we're going to get in trouble. But what lays ahead? I mean, give me an update on how things are going, Trip, and where we're going to see you in the future. What you have planned?
Well, with my cancer treatments, I'll have 6 chemo treatments. I had 3, and they ran scans, and all those came back good. Said he didn't see any lymphoma, so that was all good. I'm now fixing to undergo my 5th treatment, and I'll have my last one here in March. But we've got some Alabama tournaments coming up. I'll be hope to feel good enough to come to those, and then you might see me at the in Texas at the Classic. So, it's hard to stay away when you've done this for so long. I'm 65 years old, and I've lived BASS since the late 70s when I joined the Bass Club. And like I say, I grew up 2 blocks from the original headquarters. And so it flows through your veins. You can't get it out.
To watch a company in your lifetime to go from having a tournament hotline. I literally just say this to us, like when everybody likes to complain in this world about, the stream went down or something. In your lifetime, it went from a tournament hotline where you would get busy signal after busy signal and finally get through and get the updates on what happened that day to live streaming bass fishing and literally your job being affected probably because people see things happening on live. It really is truly unfathomable. And Trip, I want to thank you personally as a fan and as a Bass employee for everything you've done for Bass. I know because the person you are that you'll never admit it, but you mean more to this organization, to the fans of this sport, and to the anglers and everybody that's everything about bass fishing than you'll ever truly understand. Thank you.
Well, you're kind, Dave, and I appreciate those kind words. One of my proudest achievements has been the longevity of our staff, and we have great tournament staff. I mean, Chuck was there 20 years, and then Lisa came on board, but Chris Bowes and John Stewart and Gretchen and Danette and that whole crew, they've been there, all of them close to 20 plus years now. And so I'm proud of the fact, that we have such a good crew and that we all work together. I mean, everybody has their moments, but we all pull the rope in the same direction. But those are mighty kind words. I appreciate that. It's been fun being part of the sport and seeing from the days of calling the hotline to where we are now. I can't wait to see, watch the Fox coverage and see how all that shakes out.
And it's like just that in yourself, like you imagine in a world, everything that's happening, to imagine a world where you've got different major networks like ESPN and Fox that are fighting over getting bass. I mean, it's awesome, but it's you're a major reason for it. And Luke, unless you got anything,
I want to echo that and just say thank you for always being that guy in the sport that when tough decisions had to be made, you could make them, that you were the guy that nobody could ever say you played a favorite. You read it. It was black and white, that you carried bass on your shoulders, on your back, and you made it as good as any tournament trail's ever been. And you truly do bleed bass. And I think it's awesome. Well,
I appreciate that. I had it. Yeah. Dewey Kendrick was a good teacher, and the decisions you make, you never make them personal. And sometimes you have to let the emotion get out of a decision. You may have to wait until the next day to make the call, but you stick to the rule book, and if you got a field of 100 anglers and you got one guy that's messed up, you got to think about those 99 that have obeyed the rules. And so that's how I always try to approach it.
Did a great job. One of a kind. We've talked a lot this week about the GOAT being Tom Brady. This man is a GOAT in our sport, the greatest tournament director of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Trip Weldon.
Well, you know what? That's 2 episodes in a row. You throw in the Super Bowl spectacular and this one that you are trumping me in varsity guest, buddy. To start a show where we said, oh, we're not going to have any guests, to have this amazing guest list. The MC showing out.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with the Trip one. I mean, I got in trouble. I mean, Trip's kind of like, I don't know if you realize this. I mean, I think you do when you hear me talk to Trip. Trip's kind of like that father figure where, I would rather upset him than let him down. So he heard me say on the show that, he'll never come on. And he's like, man, I listen to you guys all the time. I'd come on for sure. So, I mean, when Trip says he'll come on, he freaking comes on.
Yes.
And, I mean, the only thing that I regret about that whole thing is, we really, to be honest, when we talked about it, it was just going to be 10, 15 minutes, more of a way of us to say thank you. Like I want to publicly say thank you to Trip I don't think he gets enough credit for what he's done. I mean, listen to when he answered the question, the Greg Hackney question. They don't make those decisions just based on the anglers. That's based on what's right for tournament anglers. It's based on what's right for bass anglers moving forward. So, I mean, Trip's an amazing man. And originally we just wanted to have him on to say thank you. But, he starts telling those stories.
Man, so great.
All I thought is, man, I wish we had more time with them. We should have had a Trip Weldon special. But now that you can do it. Do it on LBL. I mean, we can have him back here anytime we can. But I mean, dude, that man's full of so much great information.
Like you think about just the time that he has spent with bass. And like he said right there, calling the hotline. He's such a fan of the sport before he worked in it. He's got stories for days. And I'll apologize to all you humpers out there. I look like a bobblehead back behind the MC because I was just smiling and nodding my head because I am such a, like, the little kid around people like that and their stories. I'm in awe of a guy like Trip Weldon. Like it really did. It took me back to like him telling that story about me aging him, with the Red Man tournament. But that was my first experience with the guy. I'm like, oh man, and he was the tournament director then. You're like, oh, that's the guy, man.
Trip.
That's the guy. That's Trip, and everybody's whispering, in the parking lot. That's Trip. So that was very special for me. So I want to thank him again for coming on, and UMC for making that possible, buddy. That was awesome.
It was pretty cool. And you know what? I hate moments like that because it makes me think about, the fact that we're probably, we're not working together anymore. Moments like that, like it's real easy for me just to move on and get on the stage with Lisa or whoever it ends up. It's Lisa, I believe. Whoever it ends up being. But when you sit there, I'm just rambling right now. But you know what? Trip Weldon is amazing. And thank you, Trip. Thank you, Trip. And thank all of you for listening to our tomfoolery. We'll be back putting hump in your hump day every single Wednesday with LD and
the MC.